New start, leads to a healthy heart. New start, new start. Nutrition is important, we know, and exercise is the way to go. Water is a necessity, and sunshine is good for you and me. Sunshine is good for you and me. New start, leads to a healthy heart. New start, new start. Temperance is a gift from above, and every breath is an example of His love. When we rest, we are energized, so we can trust Him with our lives. So let's trust Him with our lives. New start.
What do you think about all these assignments Miss Jameson has dumped on us? I mean, what's the big deal?
Yeah, Miss Jameson asked us to study why some people live longer.
Diabetes is one of the most common diseases in school-age children, according to the National Diabetes Education Program. That's a real deal.
Miss Jameson called the project New Start. Each letter stands for a different principle of health that she wants us to research.
Yeah, the N is for nutrition. Does nutrition have anything to do with diabetes?
Mrs. Jameson told us to include at least one author. She suggested Ellen G. White. I'll look her up on my phone.
Hey, Kate, is Ellen White related to Shaun White, the snowboarder, skateboarder, X-Gamer record holder?
Not sure. Guess we'll find out.
You know, when the children of Israel were leaving Egypt, God told them that He would keep them from getting the diseases of Egypt if they obeyed His voice.
What?
Yeah, Moses was leading the children of Israel out of Egypt. They crossed the Red Sea and they went on to Mara.
How long ago was that?
About 1500 BC, according to the Reese Chronological Bible. Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea, then they went out into the wilderness of Shur. And then they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. Now when they came back to Mara, they could not drink the waters of Mara, for they were bitter.
What can we drink?
So he cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree. When he cast it into the waters were made sweet. There he made a statue and an ordinance for them, and there he tested them and said,
If you diligently heed the voice of the Lord your God, and do what is right in His sight, give ear to His commandments, and keep all of His statutes, I will put none of these diseases on you which I have brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you.
What were the diseases of Egypt?
Here, I'll look it up. Here's a site from the University of Illinois that says, infections, congenital disorders, cancers, and traumatic conditions were all present in abundance in the Egyptian mummies. The article goes on to say, diseases of the aorta and coronary arteries with arteriosclerosis of the kidneys and the heart and blood vessels tell us that stresses of modern-day highly civilized life are not the sole causes of degenerative vascular diseases. They are found in ancient Egypt.
Wow. Who knew?
What is arteriosclerosis, or whatever you said?
Arteriosclerosis is a narrowing of the arteries caused by a buildup of plaque.
I go to the dentist to get rid of that.
That's a different kind of plaque. This plaque is a fatty buildup inside the blood vessels of your body. Your arteries get clogged.
Yeah. Basic nutrition and diet therapy. On page 384, it says, the symptoms of diabetes were first described on an Egyptian papyrus, the Ebers Papyrus, which dates back to approximately 1500 BC.
Hey, that was the same time that you said that Moses led the children of Israel across the Red Sea.
Yes, it was.
Here's an article written in 2011 by James Owens for the National Geographic that says, Egyptian princess mummy had oldest known heart disease, an ancient Egyptian princess. The princess lived some 3,500 years ago and died in her 40s.
That was the same time as Moses, too, wasn't it?
Yes, what else does it say?
Recent scans of 52 of the museum's mummies revealed almost half of the dead have clogged arteries, including the princess. In fact, she is now the earliest known sufferer of coronary atherosclerosis, which can lead to heart attack or stroke. It also says that she had blockages in 5 major arteries, including those that supply blood to the brain and heart, said a professor of cardiology at the University of California, Irvine.
This is all very interesting. Brianne, what does God say to Moses regarding health?
The laws gave to Moses are in Leviticus. There were health guidelines, including isolating people with diseases like leprosy to keep the disease from spreading. Moses also gave specific instructions on what to eat. The children of Israel were only allowed to eat animals that were considered to be clean and were forbidden to eat fat or blood.
Was that God's first instruction about diet or health?
I guess the first instruction God gave was to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. God told Adam that he could eat of every tree except one. Of course, we know that they didn't listen to God. Adam and Eve were banished from the Garden of Eden. Then, God told them they could eat herbs. It was not until after the flood that God granted that they eat the flesh of animals.
Ellen G. White wrote in her book, Counsels on Health, God gave our first parents the food he designed that the race should eat. It was contrary to his plan to have the life of any creature taken. There was to be no death in Eden. She also said that God gave man permission to eat clean animals for food after the flood because everything man could use to survive on had been destroyed. She wrote, but animal food was not the most healthful article of food for man.
Who is Ellen White?
Ellen White was a Christian author who wrote more than 5,000 periodical articles and 40 books. She is the most translated woman writer in the entire history of literature, and the most translated American author of either men or women.
That's impressive.
Besides that, Smithsonian Magazine has named Ellen G. White among the 100 most significant Americans of all time.
What makes what we eat so important?
Eve failed the test of appetite when all their wants and needs were supplied. Jesus came 4,000 years later, and he overcame the test of appetite over 40 days and 40 nights of no food or water.
Are you saying that our control of appetite has spiritual consequences?
Yes, I believe it does, and what we eat affects our health as well.
So what is the healthiest diet today?
Medscape has an article that says, improved health is one of the many reasons people choose to adopt a vegetarian diet, and there is now a wealth of evidence to support the health benefits of a vegetarian diet. Research has found that vegetarians have lower rates of a number of health problems, including overweight and obesity, cardiovascular disease, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, some cancers, gallstones, kidney stones, constipation, and diverticular disease.
Sounds like a diet like that will help lower the risk of diseases that we read about in Egypt around 1500 BC.
Medscape reports a number of studies have shown increased longevity among vegetarians and adds, it is likely that these benefits result from both the reduced consumption of potentially harmful dietary components, including saturated fat, cholesterol, animal protein, red meat, and heme iron. That is iron from meat, seafood, and poultry, and an increased consumption of beneficial dietary components, including fruit, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, and nuts, which are rich in dietary fiber, antioxidants, and phytochemicals.
Not everyone wants to make such drastic changes. Are there some small steps that we could do to make a difference in our health?
Here is a study put out by the National Institute of Health called Health Benefits of Nut Consumption. It says epidemiologic studies have associated nut consumption with a reduced incidence of coronary heart disease and gallstones in both men and women, and diabetes in women. Limited evidence also suggests beneficial effects on hypertension, cancer, and inflammation. Interventional studies consistently show that nut intake has a cholesterol-lowering effect. Blood pressure, fat around the internal organs, and the metabolic syndrome also appear to be positively influenced by nut consumption. Thus, it is clear that nuts have a beneficial impact on many cardiovascular risk factors.
Nuts are high in fat. Wouldn't eating a handful of nuts make me gain weight?
The article goes on to say, contrary to what you might expect, epidemiologic studies and clinical trials suggest that regular nut consumption is unlikely to contribute to obesity and may even help in weight loss.
Wait, isn't fat the thing that causes heart attacks and strokes?
Well, there are different kinds of fats, and nuts are really low in bad fats. The article goes on to say that nearly half of the total fat content is made up of good fats like unsaturated fat and monounsaturated fatty acids.
I didn't know that there was such things as good fats.
This article by the NIH goes on to say nuts are also rich sources of other bioactive nutrients that have the potential to beneficially affect metabolic and cardiovascular outcomes.
Is there anything I should be concerned about with eating nuts?
Yes, but the article mentions safety concerns are limited to the uncommon occurrence of nut allergy in children. It adds, in conclusion, nuts are nutrient-rich foods with wide-ranging cardiovascular and metabolic benefits, which can easily be added into healthy diets.
That makes a lot of sense. Elephants are the largest and strongest animals that I know, and they don't even need to eat meat to get their protein. They like nuts.
So you're saying even doing a simple thing like eating a handful of nuts every day could help improve my health?
Ellen White writes in Ministry of Healing, page 320, that diet reform should be progressive. So, making small changes one step at a time may be helpful.
Medscape continues to say vegetarian diets are different from non-vegetarian diets in many ways, but the most significant difference is the absence of red meat. Research has linked higher intakes of red meat and processed meat with an increased risk of obesity, type 2 diabetes, gestational diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and some types of cancer. A large study investigating the connection of a wide range of meat intakes with chronic disease mortality found that both red and processed meat intakes were associated with modest increases in total mortality, cancer mortality, and cardiovascular disease mortality. Low meat intake, on the other hand, has been associated with greater longevity.
So does that mean if I avoid red and processed meats and increase my diet in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, and nuts, I can improve my health and longevity?
Sounds like it.
That seems simple enough. Wait, what does a place to park my boat have to do with nutrition?
That's a lagoon. We're talking about legumes. Legumes are plants that have pods. We call them beans or peas.
Thanks, that makes a lot more sense.
The most amazing thing to me is that you can improve how long you live by eating a plant-based diet.
Do you see anything else that is important?
Here's an article by the National Institute of Health, NIH News and Health, and it says, to tease out the effects of diet, scientists have to conduct large, carefully controlled studies that account for other factors. One of the world's largest studies of plant-based diets is now underway at Loma Linda University in California. Cardiologist Dr. Fraser is leading an NIH-funded team of scientists to analyze data on 96,000 Seventh-day Adventists in all 50 states and in Canada. Members of this religious group have unique dietary habits and a generally healthy lifestyle.
That is quite a large group.
The next paragraph says, Adventists are encouraged to follow a vegetarian diet, but about half the population sometimes eats meat. These different eating patterns allow scientists to compare a wide range of dietary habits and look for links between diet and disease.
Hey, in Daniel 1, you can read about the first research study ever recorded. Then the king ordered Ashpenaz, chief of his court officials, to bring in some of the Israelites from the royal family and the nobility, some young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well-informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. He was to teach them the language and literature of the Babylonians. The king assigned them a daily amount of food and wine from the king's table. They were to be trained for 3 years, and after that they were to enter the king's service. Among these were some from Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine, and he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. Now God had caused the official to show favor and sympathy for Daniel, but the official told Daniel,
I fear the Lord my king, for he has provided this food and drink. And why should he see faces that are thinner than these, of men your age? For he shall have my head.
Please test your servants for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food, and treat your servants in accordance with what you see.
So he agreed to this and tested them for 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, they looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. So the guard took away their choice food and the wine they were to drink and gave them vegetables instead. To these 4 men, God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning. At the end of the time set by the king to bring them in, the chief official presented them to the Nebuchadnezzar. The king talked with them, and he found none equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they entered the king's service. In every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king questioned them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters in his whole kingdom.
So what did the king give Daniel and his friends to eat?
Some versions of the Bible use the word vegetables or pulse, but in Hebrew, the word simply means something sown or planted. In other words, a plant-based diet.
That is interesting. In my app, Ellen White in Ministry of Healing writes, grains, fruits, nuts, and vegetables constitute the diet chosen for us by our Creator. These foods, prepared in as simple and natural a manner as possible, are the most healthful and nourishing. They impart a strength, a power of endurance, and a vigor of intellect that are not afforded by a more complex and stimulating diet.
How do I know where to start?
That's a good question. This same book says, but not all foods wholesome in themselves are equally suited to our needs under all circumstances. Care should be taken in the selection of food. Our diet should be suited to the season, to the climate in which we live, and to the occupation we follow. Some foods that are adapted for us to use at one season or in one climate are not suited to another. So there are different foods best suited for persons in different occupations. Often, food that can be used with benefit by those engaged in hard physical labor is unsuitable for persons of sedentary pursuits or intense mental application. God has given us an ample variety of healthful foods, and each person should choose from it the things that experience and sound judgment prove to be the best suited to his own necessities.
Hey, on my phone, there is a free app called My Plate Tracker. You can enter what you have eaten, and it will let you know your calories, your fats, your carbohydrates, and your proteins, vitamins, and even minerals.
Wow, that's interesting.
In My Life Today, Ellen White wrote, the better you observe the laws of health, the more clearly you can discern temptations and resist them, and the more clearly you can discern the value of eternal things.
Hey, we learned quite a bit today.
Yes, a lot about food choices and how nutrition can affect disease and longevity, as well as how following simple principles of health can help us improve self-control.
Yeah, we learned a lot from the Egyptians in research.
I still have a lot of questions.
Yes, there is so much more to learn. We have not even scratched the surface. Well, I need to go. I still have another paper to write tonight.
Yes, I need to go pick up my little brother. See you tomorrow.
Bye!
Later!
See you tomorrow.
That was quite a study session we had yesterday on how to get a new start as we studied nutrition.
Yes, it was.
I went on My Plate Tracker last night. Almonds have less fat than peanuts.
Hey, that goes along with my app on Ellen White's writings. Almonds are preferable to peanuts, but peanuts in limited quantities used in connections with grains are nourishing and digestible.
I think I'm going to eat a handful of nuts two or three times per week.
I'm going to study what foods that are good for intense mental work.
Eating more fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and beans isn't too hard. I can do that.
I liked how Daniel stood up for principles. I'm going to try a plant-based diet.
That research was pretty convincing. I think I'm going to start cutting back on red and processed meat and see how that works for me.
Every little choice for something better will help improve our health, I'm sure.
Did we find out if Shaun White is related to Ellen White?
No, but I really don't think he is. But the real deal is Shaun White exercises a lot outdoors. And Ellen White wrote a lot about exercise, and that's our next assignment.
Can't wait to get back to talk about exercise in the next New Start episode.
See you next time.
Some things were made to never be forgotten. We'll get up and celebrate another day, 'cause it was made for us. We've got a brand new start, and there is always more to learn. Well, I know this life of mine has many ups and downs. I know I'm destined for changes. Through all the trials here and all the loveliness, I know the Lord is my Savior. We've been through so much together. I see love. Love will remain. No doubt the best of me is thanks to you. Lord above, singing. Some things were made to never be forgotten. Get up and celebrate another day, 'cause it was made for us. We've got a brand new start, and there is always more to learn. Now that I have been blessed, I'll give you all the rest. It starts with finding a new way. You showed me how to live, and I found a way to give. Today's the start of a new day. We've had our share of struggles, but your love stays the same. No doubt the best of life is yet to come. Lord above, singing.